The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the quality of your thoughts. That's by Marcus Aurelius from Meditations, and I think it is a really fantastic quote. It reminds me that when I'm thinking negatively about situations, for example, when I'm making, value judgments on what people's motivations are, oh, that person doesn't like me, etc., I have to be aware that this is damaging to myself, to my own mental health, thinking negatively, because my soul essentially gets colored by these thoughts. The more negative thoughts I have, the more dark my soul becomes. And this is a very important thing, I think, to bear in mind generally all the time. The obstacle is the way. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Out of all the different choices that we have of things to do, options to take, paths to go down, in many cases it is the most difficult obstacle. It is the most difficult paths which are the paths we should go down, because these are the paths that we can grow. For example, I work as an account manager and I have to try and learn how to build relationships with high-level directors. To me, it's super tough. I'm quite a shy individual, so for me to do this, it's quite difficult. However, out of all my choices of things I could do, in this case, the obstacle is the way. I have to learn how to do this because it's the area that's going to give me the most personal and professional growth. The obstacle is the way. Don't always agree with your impressions. So when we see a situation, we combine the objective situation with a subjective value judgment. Let's say, for example, we order a coffee from Starbucks and the barista makes it and gives it to us, but he doesn't smile and he doesn't say anything. So the objective situation is that he gave us the coffee cup, didn't smile, didn't say anything. But my value judgment may think to myself, this is a rude guy and he's doing this to kind of spite me, right? And as irrational as this seems, this happens all the time in everyday life, right? We combine the objective situation with what we think is happening. So I'm essentially reading his mind at this point. I'm thinking to myself, this guy hates me, he hasn't said anything, he's not smiling, he must have some problem with me, right? It's a value judgment that I've subjectively come up myself, and I've combined it with the situation, the objective fact, and this is my overall impression. My overall impression is that he's given me the coffee and he's annoyed by me somehow and he's not speaking and all this kind of stuff. And I have a choice whether or not to accept this impression. And clearly, in many cases, it's full of assumptions. It's full of subjectivity. And to be honest, it's not healthy if I always think this way. And I always think that I can read somebody's mind like this. It's clearly, not based on evidence. And it's, clearly kind of jumping the gun in a lot of ways. So don't always agree with your impressions, because a lot of the time they're filled with subjective nonsense. Focus on what is controllable. Everything else is a distraction. If I read the Daily Mail or something, I will get sometimes quite angry, right? Because there's so many stories of murder and crime and viciousness that, to be honest, it'll make me feel quite sad, sometimes if I read about a murder or something. And it makes me think, why am I putting my attention on this? Because it affects me and it's out of my control. And there are people who get deeply annoyed by things, little things, like, parked cars, what people are doing outside, what is Boris Johnson doing, the tennis, the football, what is this football player doing? And these are things completely out of our control, right? So why are we fixated on these situations when we have no effect on, on what the outcomes are? Right, and in a sense, when we are not in control of our emotions, right? Because our emotions are being controlled by external situations going left and right and all this kind of stuff, right? So it kind of leaves us completely off the rails all the time, because we're always swinging left and right depending on what's going on. Instead, Marcus Aurelius says, "What is outside my mind means nothing to it. Absorb that lesson, and your feet stand firm." So if things are going crazy outside and things are terrible, whatever, stand firm, think about your own thoughts and think about what you have in your control at this moment, because that, in the end, that's the only practical thing to think about, right? Is to know that you can control only what is under your control, and everything else is a distraction. And this also goes back to the previous point, which is your soul takes on the color of your thoughts. So if you're letting all of these external circumstances affect you, you're going to be in a pretty dark place eventually. So that's it, some quick takeaways that I've learned from reading some Stoicism. I'm a Stoic beginner, really, but I really do enjoy reading it. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, Ryan Holiday's work. There's so many different sources there which are fantastic. I'll leave some links in the comment section. But yeah, these are just some quick lessons that I've learned so far from Stoicism. My name's John. Peace out.